always do that. Always talk over that. It always wants to tag my brother. The struggles of being a twin.
Yeah.
So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm Lance McHan, and today I'm talking with Nate Summers. He is an interventionist and an addiction counselor. Families are always affected this time of year. Well, there's two sides of the coin. Families are affected by addiction and missing the addicted one, and then the person who is addicted feels isolated. So today I'm going to talk with Nate and let people know that there are services available and see what we could do to maybe shed some light on addiction.
Excellent.
Thank you for stopping by today.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
So it's been my experience that everybody who is in the addiction arena has, and I think most people have been affected by people who have been or have dealt with addiction. Do you have a story? Yeah. I know you have a story. I've known you for 10 plus years. So why don't you share a little bit about your story with the audience?
All right. So my name is Nate Summers. I am an interventionist and addiction specialist. I grew up in Lodi, just down the street. I grew up in Lodi. I went to Lodi High School. Early on, started sampling with alcohol and some other things, and just from the gate for me, it was a problem. It never really ended well. It always just kind of. It was always a way to escape, you know. And if you're always looking for a way to escape, you can always find it. But the problem is, in the beginning, you do escape just a little bit, and the side effects and the consequences are pretty low. But towards the end of any addiction or somewhere along the line, those side effects and consequences become very great, and they're very expensive, and you get very little out of the substance you're using. And at that point, you have to decide whether or not you're going to do something about it. And for me, I was very fortunate. In 2006,
How old were you?
I'm sorry?
How old were you at that time?
I actually turned 30 in rehab. So, I was there, and I turned 30, so I can tell you exactly.
So you've been dealing with addiction for many years.
Yeah, many years, about 15 years. I find in the course of this job that I do that generally between about 25 to 35 for males is when they start to kind of get a grip on like just maturity in general,
okay.
or the things that make them
growing up a little bit.
Growing up a little bit, yeah. The brain doesn't fully develop until about age 25, but if you're doing a lot of drugs or alcohol, that slows that, you know, in terms of risk reward and a lot of the functions the brain has. It doesn't fully develop until about age 25 for males.
So what was your moment? Like, when did you say, this life is not for me? Oh, do you want to share with people what was your...
Yeah, sure.
Your choice of... and then we could go into, like, what was your moment?
Yeah. So for me, my dad was also an alcoholic and a drug addict, and so for me, it was a second generational thing. I was just always trying to kind of hang out and fit in with my dad, and I just always wanted to be like him, you know. And my mom was complete opposite. They were divorced before I was even born. So here on the one side, I had this great life. My mom, my stepfather, they taught me a lot of great things, showed me a really good life. And for some reason, I was always drawn to this other lifestyle, the criminal lifestyle, the bars, just. a lot of dysfunction, and that's why I don't know why, but I was always drawn to that, and so I followed his footsteps into that lifestyle, and somewhere in the middle of it, I got tired of being looked at as my dad's son. I wanted him to be my dad. In other words, I wanted to be the big shot, right? And I wanted him to kind of retire, and I would be the big shot, and I would kind of. And it's just a really silly way of looking at it.
In a way, you're trying to honor your father by being like him, but one-upping him.
Sense. It was time to pass the guard, right? It was kind of like, and that's just ridiculous because there was nothing about our lifestyle that was
glory to
pass on, right? It's just another day. So So towards the end, him and I just really didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. His was progressing, mine was progressing. It got so bad that we even fought, and the last day I saw him alive, me and him got into a fight.
Wow.
Yeah, and we had been in fights before.
Physical fight? Or
yeah, physical fight.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
This is how chaotic my lifestyle was.
Wow.
So we would fight every once in a while just because of alcohol or whatever. And it was kind of like no big deal, Like the next day, oh yeah, you got me that time.
You son of a...
Yeah. Or he'd tell me sometimes, I'm proud of you, man. You could really take a punch, or something like that. And so I know it's crazy, but this time was different. He didn't like me, I didn't like him. We were fighting to hurt each other, and that's exactly what happened. And somewhere in the middle of that, I was in actually what I now know to be a meth-induced psychosis.
Okay.
And I didn't know that then. I didn't know anything about that. So at that time, I snapped out of it for a split second. He was on the ground. I was over him. He was looking at me like, oh my God, he's going to kill me. This is my hero, And
Right.
why would I want to? So for a split second, I snapped out of it and I left. And I went with my brother, and he took me up to Sacramento to his place. And we just, and even him, we're unconditional. And even he was like, I can't be around you right now. I just can't. You got to do.
You have to fix yourself.
Yeah, it was just too out of control. I didn't trust anybody. Everything was this close to a rage.
And that was due to the meth.
Meth and whiskey at the same time. That was my whole
your elixir.
That was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And
that was wild.
Yeah, if you want to go to sleep, you drink some whiskey. If you want to wake up, you do some meth. That's how you do it. But
back then it wasn't called meth. It was called crank.
Yeah, it's called a lot of things.
Yeah.
Crystal. We got lots of names for it. Right. But anyways, so when he told me that, I looked at myself for a split second and said, "What the hell has happened?"
Where am I at?
What's going on here? And so I reached out to my mom, who was absolutely disgusted with me by then. Like, she had quit calling me. She had, But I reached out to her and said, Mom, I don't know what it means, because I honestly didn't. I really thought that going to rehab was just a way for some people to get out of going to jail. That's all I thought. And I thought they went there, and then they would get out, and they go
back to the same old.
I had no idea there was this thing called recovery and all this stuff. And
you didn't realize there's a path to healing.
Yeah. And so I went, and I knew that it was over. I didn't know anything about it, but I started getting into it. Early on in the treatment process, I really decided I was going to do this, and then my sister comes to the treatment center and says, I wasn't supposed to tell you. He was conscious when he went in. He's really still mad at you, but now he's in a coma and he's not going to make it. You got to go make your peace.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm in rehab. I'm in like 60 days clean, right? And I'm just like,
and that's a breaking point for a lot of people.
Yeah, it could have been. Well, that's part of the story, is that I went down there and I made my peace, and the first thing I said when I walked in, and I just choose to believe he heard me. I choose to believe that he forgives me, because I know I forgive him for all the nonsense.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just part of the deal. And I went in and I said, you're not going to believe this, but I can take care of myself now, and I will do my best to take care of your lady and my sister. I will do that. And that was like the only thing I could think to say to try to give some peace, because I assumed forgiveness. And so I go back to the treatment center, and this little lady, man, she's like an angel in my heart. Her name is Miss Jewel. She worked in this county for many years, probably close to 40 years. And she came to me, and she knew that my dad had just died. And she said, oh, son, I just need to tell you something so bad. She's a very religious person, a very godly person. And at that time, I didn't have very much God in my life. And so it didn't really make sense that she wanted to talk to me. But She said, it's either part of your relapse or it's part of your recovery.
Wow.
That's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to choose the path you're going to take at that point.
Exactly. She says, do you want to bring honor back to your family name, or do you want to continue to dishonor your family name? Boom. That's all I needed to hear.
She slapped you upside the head.
Yeah.
Wow. With the 2x4.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had decided somewhere in the middle of that I wanted to help people, and I just didn't know how yet. So I went to school after that. Shortly thereafter, I was the manager of a sober living house. Good friend of mine, Jesse, I'm still friends with him to this day, was very helpful. He was a guy who was in recovery, had done a lot of time in prison, and understood why I was the way I was, and took the time. A lot of time. Like we started a landscaping thing, and we would spend most of the day together. And here I thought we were just mowing lawns. He was giving me like man lessons. You know what I'm saying? Like,
he was giving me life skills.
Yeah, he was telling me how to be a man, how to recover from this stuff. He was teaching me how to not be an immature child that reacts to every little thing and violence and all that type of stuff. And,
oh, that's pretty deep.
Yeah. So
you had no idea he was Mr. Miyagi.
He was Mr. Miyagi.
He was doing you wrong. Wax the fence.
Yeah, he was.
Wax up, wax up.
That's funny. That's a good way of putting it.
Pretty soon you're like, wow.
I'm gonna call him today and tell him he's Mr. Miyagi. He'll like that. Might be watching right now.
I hope he's watching.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can chime in with tell some stories about Nate.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny. He wrote a book. It's called Detoured. He spent a lot of time in prison, but he actually has gone on to get a PhD.
Oh wow!
And he's an amazing person. And he wrote a book, and the whole time he was writing the book, we were working, and I kept teasing him, "Hey, you got to give me a chapter. Talk about your boy, you know."
Right.
He gave me a chapter. You write, you know. So it's in the book Detoured. If you want to check that out.
Link to that in the show notes here. That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I met you out of desperation, really. My nephew, who hopefully is watching at some point, he was going through some challenges, and I reached out to you, and we met, and we instantly connected.
Yeah.
Like something Nate said to me is like, I like helping people because it's currency for my soul, and I've used that ever since in dealing with people. They're like, why are you helping? It's currency for the soul. You know, you have to do good for people. It helps you feel, shines a light on your day sometimes.
Well, and I look at it like this. Drugs and alcohol actually worked in one respect. I didn't like the way I felt, and so when I did those things, it changed the way I felt. Sometimes it wasn't better, sometimes it was worse, but it always changed.
Right.
Right? And so when you take somebody who needs to change the way they feel, and you say to them, look, all these things are bad. Yeah, I know they work, and they work sometimes well for you, but you can't do them anymore. If you go to that person, you say that, and you don't have some type of substitute to fill that in, that's just kind of cruel. You're saying the thing that works can't be used. And so I have found that using the spiritual experience, I call it, I don't call it, I've copied all this stuff from things like Alcoholics Anonymous and people that were before me. But the spiritual experience is that currency. It's that currency of helping another person. I get a little bit of a dopamine shot every time I know I've helped somebody. You know, and so when that happens, it becomes the new drug of choice. It's a currency. It's an old counselor of mine said, "There's no such thing as a $20 bill to a crackhead." Why not? It's just a measurement of how much crack he's going to buy. It's
right.
20 or 40 or 60 or whatever.
Right.
And I looked at it. It's like, okay, well, that's the currency of the drug. Well, for me, the currency of the soul is this spiritual experience of helping somebody else out and knowing that something about my pain, my previous pain, is the only reason it works. So.
Wow. So, your moment when you're like in recovery, when did you say, okay, I think I could, or I know I could do this?
Okay.
What did that look like?
So the day, okay, so
a lot of people go, sorry to interrupt you. I think a lot of people who may step into recovery, they're looking for that aha moment. And it may not be a flash of light or a slap in the head. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a little more subtle. What was yours like?
Mine was a very bright burning bush. So I had been to an AA meeting the day before. I told you my sister came and got me at the rehab. I had gone to an AA meeting, and all these guys had passed around an envelope, and they all put their name and their number on it. It said, if you're going to drink, call us, don't drink. Right? And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, you know? And so the next day she tells me that. And the first reaction I had when I got to the hospital was at St. Joseph's, just down the street, was, oh yeah, what? Because I'm an angry person, right? Still, especially back then, I'm just an angry. My first reaction is anger. So I'm angry that I didn't get a chance to fix. So I go out to the lobby, and I didn't feel like drinking, but I did feel like getting into like some kind of altercation or something with somebody to make them feel like me. And instead, I pulled out this number, okay? This first number on the list, and I called it, and I said, okay, what can you do for this? You know, it sounds all good and wonderful, but here I am at the hospital. My dad's dying.
Now, you know.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do for me?
Yeah. What does this mean? You know, put your money where your mouth is. Right. Here we go. And he goes, no way, you're at St. Joseph's, and he goes, I'll be right there. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we go down and wait in the lobby. He goes, you're not gonna believe this, man. I was adopted, and and my dad was in here, and my brothers and sisters didn't even tell me that he was down here because they didn't think I was part of the family, and he died in here, and I couldn't make it on time because they didn't tell me. So every day I drive by here wishing I had made it into this hospital in time. Wow. Right? This is only like a couple months before. And I get goosebumps every time I tell this story.
I'm getting them right now, man.
He says to me, I can't believe, he goes, I drive by here every day and I wish I had made it in here, and I can't, and it bothers me every single day. But now you call me as a newcomer, and I got to walk through all that to get to you. So you've helped me a lot today, man.
Wow.
And I was like, and he goes, that's how this program works. When your pain is the only thing that can help somebody else. And I'm like, oh, angels. And I went, if I could help somebody right then,
wow.
What if I was on my game, right? I could do some pretty good things.
I'm getting goosebumps, dude. Oh, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So his struggle, he had to force himself through his burning bush.
That's how the program works.
Help you.
Because the newcomer is the most important person. If you've been around a while, the reason you still go is not for you at a certain point. Yeah, it is for you a little bit. Right. Maintenance. But the real work and the real spiritual experience comes from helping the guy that's brand new that has no idea, and you're the introduction to the program.
Wow.
You know?
I had no. Wow.
Yeah.
See, I've been around recovery my whole life. It's like, but I've never really understood it. You know, because we all have family members who struggle. We have that one family member who's the black sheep, who.
That's me.
Yeah. So. That's a huge understanding. I never really knew that. I used to go to AA meetings with my nephew to support him.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful stuff, and you know what? You can't take it for granted. And I need to tell you something right now. I mean, I went to rehab in 2006, but it's very important that I maintain my credibility and my honesty, and that was not the last time that I used. I have drank since then. Right, and I've dealt with it and everything like that. But to be completely honest about it, it's struggle. I struggle with it all the time. I don't drink all the time, or I don't use all the time. But what I'm saying is, it never really goes away. So a person could be 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years, and if they're not maintaining themselves, they're subject to this thing.
So you're, like they say, you're one day away from relapsing.
Yeah.
So you've had a couple slips.
I have.
So what did a certified interventionist, what did you do? How did you go? We're going to dive deep.
Yeah.
So explain to myself and everybody who's watching, you were clean for how many years?
I was clean for 7 years when I drank.
And was it one drink or was it?
No, it was a binge. I thought I could drink like everyone else. Back then, I thought I could do that, and I tried it, and it didn't work, and I didn't know it didn't work until I was already in trouble again, you know? And it just happened so fast and everything. I had really good people around me.
Did people go, are you okay?
Well, people went beyond that. They went, what are you thinking? You know, you cannot, you know, and I just...
So when you were drinking, were you hiding it?
I did hide it.
Did it come out?
Yeah.
Or because people knew you were acting different, or did you tell people, or you were just like, no, I don't care, I'm gonna have a beer?
No, back then I was pretty outward about it. Until I got caught. Once I got caught,
okay,
which was the first day, I got caught, and then after that, I guess I did try to hide a little bit, but at the same time, I went back to old familiar places, old bars and stuff like that too. It was really, really silly, and I'm not proud of it. I really don't like to dwell on it too much because I feel like if I'm going to talk to somebody out there and I'm going to try and maybe be of assistance to them, I can't sit here and just, you know,
up on your pedestal.
Right. It's a long way to fall. I did it before, and it's not fun.
So what did you do at that point? What was your steps?
Excuse me. I had to go back to. I went back to treatment.
Okay. Because a lot of people go out of recovery or come out of recovery. They're clean for many years, and then they relapse.
Let me tell you something. By then, I had been to national trainings across the country for drug court. I had worked with a man named Ken Seeley, who, if you Google Ken Seeley, he's on the show Intervention on A&E.
I was going to say that.
I worked with him. He's my friend. He mentored me. He may be watching. We're friends on Facebook. I mean, we're still friends. And I'm talking about some high-end training. You know what I'm saying? Like the best of the best. And some of the greatest teachers in this country, and I drank, right? And, you know, to admit that after all that was real hard to do. It was really hard to do. And I even reached out to him, and he was willing to put me in his own rehab and everything, but I had already kind of made a commitment to go to another one. So I'm very grateful for all that. But I'm telling, my point in that is, if you don't maintain humility, the world will humble you. and I got my dose on that one. It was really hard. I almost lost my family. I almost lost my job. I didn't. They understood, but it got to a point where it was now or never, and so I could go with the now.
What's the judge? I can't always. His name is on the tip.
That I work with.
Judge V.
Judge Blaviano. Judge V. Yeah. That's the guy who sort of, when Jesse, this whole journey has been kind of passing off to the next person, and first it was a guy named Larry, and then Jesse, and now it's Judge V that kind of I look up to. I'm there every day for 8 hours a day.
Right.
And we've traveled the country going to trainings, and we actually now train as well as going to trainings. We actually are trainers. And he calls me his resident expert antisocial thinker. He tells all these cops and district attorneys, judges, if you ever want to know what a criminal thinks, just ask Nate.
Right.
If you want to know why they do what they do, ask them. And it's kind of funny. So, it looks like Matt's watching us, huh?
Yeah, he's watching. What's up, Matt? How you doing, buddy?
So, yeah.
So, how did you go from recovery to become an interventionist? I mean, that's
a good question. Yeah, so I was going to school. At that moment I was the house manager of this halfway house that Jesse owned, and another man named David, who's another tremendous person in my path. They owned this place, and they trusted me with it, and I took it and I ran with it. I really took it seriously. I did some things that were hard for a guy that's early in recovery. It's hard to make those decisions, especially when you've been in and out of jail as much as I have. It's hard to hold another person that's on your level accountable, because that starts to make you think, look, you're a snitch or something, right? Or and it wasn't that or whatever. And I had to get through it. I did, and Jesse was a big part of that. But so I'm sitting there watching intervention. I'm going to school at night, and I'm doing this during the day, and I'm watching intervention.
The show?
Yeah. Well, my wife and my kids were there, and we were watching it. And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to meet that guy, and I'm going to have him teach me. I'm going to do it. She goes, okay, so,
all right.
Okay, yeah.
Dream big, buddy.
6 months sober, you know what I mean? I'm doing everything. And I just Googled the guy, and he's got his own company, so it's not that he doesn't just do interventions for the show. He's got his company, and then they contracted him. So I hit him up and said, would you be willing to train somebody? And I told him a little bit about myself. He said, I'm not really trying to train anybody, but I'll hire you as a contractor, and then I won't give you anything to do until I feel like you're ready. And so I was like, absolutely. So here I am now, barely, like I said, and so I'm working at drug court. I'm doing this, and the way that worked was I had to close deals on the phone, and they would call a hotline. It would ring to our phones from wherever, and so we'd close the deal, and then you do that a couple times, then they'll let you go on an intervention with someone else, except for you have to pay for everything, so it's a little investment. So
you paid for your internship.
I was paying for my internship by traveling wherever, because this is a national company. It's actually international now, and I would go to these places and I'd watch them do the intervention.
So you had to get your own plane ticket?
Yeah.
I just want to clarify.
Absolutely.
You were paying your own hotel, plane ticket, all that
everything.
To go learn this.
To just watch. And you don't know where it's going to go from there, but it was important to me that I did it. So I was not making a lot of money at that time. It was a big investment. My wife thought I was nuts for doing all that, and I was spending all this extra time on the phones, and so we did that, and then
and money.
Yeah, money too that we didn't have. Yeah, but so the first then finally the day came when it was my turn, and they tapped my shoulder and said, "Hey, are you ready or what?" And I said, "Yeah." Well, this guy had not gone with Ken. He's 98% success rate, And they said, you need to get down there. He got 2 DUIs in one day. Since then, he got arrested for DUI. He got home. They impounded his car. He came home, got on his Vespa in Santa Barbara, and was going down the hill and wrecked it and got another DUI within 8 hours.
Wow.
He might be ready.
He might be ready.
So I go, okay. And I'm, all this time, almost 2 years of trying to get to this place. And I'm they send me on one, Ken can't get to cut, So I'm like, oh my God, how's this going to happen? So I get down there, man, and it's a longer story. I'll give you the shortened version, but I was there for 2 days with this guy in his house. He let me stay there. His family would come and they would go, and I'm trying to do that. I wasn't giving up. And finally, I got him to go. Okay, and I mean, it was brutal, man. He was drinking tequila straight out of a glass. He probably drank 4 bottles of tequila while I was there. Okay?
Oh, man.
Nice guy, but drunk. And it's hard to rationalize with. So I finally get him to go.
Talk to him when he woke up, or was he still?
He was like functioning. I mean, believe it or not, but he was toasted. But so he says, "I'll go, but I'm not flying commercial." I go, "What does that even mean?" So he says, "Give me the phone." Give him the phone. He hires a private jet from Santa Barbara. This is a family, you would know the name. This is a family that people, not like, big time, but you would know this name, okay? And so we're going to the Vince Carter Sanctuary. I don't know if you follow basketball, but Vince Carter was a basketball player, still probably is, I don't know. And he had opened a treatment center because somebody in his family suffered from addiction. So it's in Daytona. So we fly on this private jet to Daytona.
And
this is my first one. Yeah, the one that, so I'm like.
The royal treatment, are you sitting back and like, what is happening?
I could show you the selfies I took on the plane because he was out. He took a bunch of Xanaxes and everything, and he was just out. And I'm on this private jet just going, oh my God, this is the greatest job ever. And turns out they don't all work like that. But it was pretty cool, man. And so I was hooked, for the intervention thing for a while. The problem was I couldn't give up my day job. So I would literally be driving home on Friday evening or Friday afternoon from work. They would call me because I always had to have a bag packed. And they'd say, and the coordinator would always get all the flights and everything, So they'd call me and say, hit Sacramento Airport right now. You're going to Tampa. You're going to Philadelphia.
You don't even have time to kiss the wife and kids goodbye.
And it's sliding in on Sunday night and go back to work Monday. And it was brutal. And one day I got called on Christmas morning. We're literally opening presents, and I did not get home until New Year's Eve because I stayed going from airport to airport. It was crazy.
I bet your wife was happy about that.
She was actually, yeah, probably. I don't know. But that burned me out.
She understood, but yeah. Like, you're like, hey, son of a good.
So as I got kind of phased out of that, it was just too much. I just kind of wanted to bring intervention and the things that I had learned here to this community.
Right.
And to me, I do make a living doing it, but it's not about the big money aspect of it. If a guy needs to go and I can be of assistance, I'm going to go. If they can pay for it, if they can't, and I find that when you go with those intentions, people make it right with you anyways, so I've not suffered.
Grateful. I mean, sometimes it's their last chance.
Yeah.
You can't even quantify how many lives you've probably saved.
The ripple effect is pretty profound if you start to think about it.
Yeah. Because it's like, if they would have not gone and went and had another drink or used again, it's the quantum physics that are in this.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Or I look at it like if we get them before they start to have a family, their kids don't have to go through it.
Right.
And if their kids don't have to go through it, maybe their kids don't have to go through it. You might have stopped a whole generation like myself. I'm second generation, right? Well, what if somebody had intervened on my dad and made some type of impact before I was even born? Maybe I didn't have to go through all this. Maybe I'm in Thailand with horsemen. And it's time to go.
Right? Or in Egypt eating ice cream. Son of a gun. So, where are you now? What are you doing now? I mean, we've been friends for 10 years and you've helped my family out. So, share with the audience, what are you doing now? What are you doing for the community? And how can you be of assistance? Because again, tying this all back, the family dynamics, they're struggling. They want their loved ones to get help. But the flip side of the coin is sometimes the family doesn't want to be around. So now the addict is isolated. So they're like, nobody cares. I'm going to take this to the next level. I'm just going to go to the wall.
Yeah. Addiction's tricky. What you're thinking, and this is where the mistake usually happens. You're thinking of pro-social solutions through an antisocial person's thought process. All the things you just said that make perfect sense to all of us don't even come into the registry of an addict. All they're worried about is getting the next one.
Right.
Right. And yeah, they miss their family, and yeah, the trauma's there, and yeah, it's all there. But I don't have to deal with it if I could just go get high. right? So
I'm going to show them.
Yeah, or not. No, it's really not about them at that point. It's just about me. It's all about me. It's all about me all the time, and it's all consuming. And the more bridges you burn, the more it gets like that. And then at that point, you're just hanging out with people like you. I mean, I always kind of say, like, for me, I went to a party in high school, and then I went to a bar, and then I went to jail. It was all crime from the beginning, and everybody else was just partying. I was already a criminal. I was making choices to break every kind of social rule I could from the very beginning.
So when you say antisocial, typically I think it's somebody who doesn't want to go talk to people. What's the true definition?
Well, there's probably a true definition. But what I'm talking about is, why would you go get high on Christmas Eve and when you have your kids at your parents' house on Christmas morning? Why would you do that? A pro-social person would not do that. What I'm saying is, and not every antisocial person is a drug addict, but every drug addict is antisocial. So make no mistake. And you could be reformed. It's rehabilitatable. That's the message I want to kind of bring, is that, yeah, it's really bad. There's always a solution. There always is. It may not be pretty. It may take a long time. And unfortunately, sometimes for some people, the solution is death. That's their solution. And I don't advocate for that. I always look at it like, there's something we could do. There's some way we could try. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, at least when that happens, you can at least go to bed saying, I did everything I had. So, I didn't just look the other way.
So what advice do you have for people who may be struggling with addiction personally, or family members?
So that's a good question. And like we said before the show, it's like usually people either address one or the other. They put all their attention into the addict, or the family separates from the addict and they put all their attention into their recovery from the addict. And if you want a true solution, you have to put attention into both of those things. No matter how good your family is, because I've dealt with some of the most wonderful people in the world who just don't get it in that way. They can get it for their neighbor. They can get it for they can see it from the outside, but when you're inside that house, you can't see it the same way.
Inside the tornado, it's hard to see.
You can't. It's impossible. In my own family, I can't.
Mm-hmm.
The best suggestion I would give a family first, I would say, get somebody from the outside to help you look in and translate the things from, like I say, this is kind of a generic phrase, but the antisocial or pro-social. It's like there's two different languages. There's two different currencies, right? They're operating on two different currencies, love, getting high. So you need to translate those things, because what the addict's going to tell you is a bunch of things that you want to hear, right?
Right.
But a person who knows how to translate can say, no, right? And
you're blowing smoke signals.
They're blowing smoke signals, and this is what they actually need. And yeah, it's going to suck, and they're going to tell you they hate you. Everything about it is wrong, because you're breaking them away from the thing that works. Now, here comes me, and I say, yeah, I get it. It sucks. But here's the other thing. There's other things that you can do in your life that will give you the same satisfaction, and they don't have the side effects and consequences. And that will sometimes get somebody's attention. Doesn't mean they're going to, but at least for the first time, they'll hear something that's not all this or all that. There's something in the middle, right? And because and just kind of tell you how there's something called the anhedonia scale. I think I told you about this a long time ago. 10 is the most euphoric, pleasurable experience. You can't achieve it. You would never feel that good. 0 is you would do anything to end your own life because you cannot stand the way you feel in your skin. Feelings, emotions, whatever you want to call it, you can't have it. So 5. Everybody's operating. Most people operate at a 5 every day of their life. They don't know it. It's okay. They have self-confidence. They don't have low self-esteem. Their self-worth is intact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're operating at a 5. So when they go to that high school party, they do something that makes them feel good. They go to a 6 or a 7. It's great. It was cool. But now I'm back to the next day. I'm back to 5. I'm okay. A guy like me comes along for whatever reasons, probably from childhood experiences, abandonment, whatever. You never know what it is, but has a lower self-worth, has a lower self-esteem, has all these things that makes them feel less than. They don't know it either.
So they're operating at like a 4?
Let's say a 4.
Okay.
They're operating at a 4. Okay, and so and they don't know it. They see everybody else having all these confident conversations. They can go up to the girl that they like and talk to them. They're not intimidated to get into a fight with some guy because they're scared, you know. So for the first time they go to the party, they go up to a 5 or 6, all that stuff goes away. Right when it hits 5, it goes away.
Wow.
For the first time they look around and all those guys that they were usually intimidated of, or the girls they're usually intimidated of, no more. It's gone. All that's gone. Now it goes up a little bit higher. Now I'm not only do I'm not intimidated of them, I'll even fight them. 6, right?
6.
And I want to prove a point, because this might not last very long. I want to prove a point that I can kick your ass so that you'll never mess with me again, right? So then the next day comes down to a 4 again. I tell addicts this because, you know what? Who would ever expect somebody to live at a 4 and just deal with it?
Right.
Nobody would.
No.
If it gets them, if it works to a 5, then you know what? Okay. But now the side effects and consequences kick in. When you come back down, you don't come back down to a 4. You come back down to a 3.9. When you get high again that day, because it worked, why wouldn't you do it every day?
Right.
You only go up to a 4.9, right? And
so you're always chasing that.
The next thing you know, a couple months have gone by, and you're just doing it to feel like a 4 again.
Oh wow!
And who am I to come into your house and tell you, no, you should feel like a 2? I know this is like nobody says that, but,
right.
But in terms of the feeling, I can look them in the eye and say, I know you feel like shit. I know this works, but it's not working well anymore. All these other bad things are happening, and I have something that works better. Why wouldn't you want to at least look into that?
That's deep.
It's deep. That's intervention.
Okay.
That's intervention.
That makes sense. So what would the first step be? You know, we always say admitting you have a problem, but I know it's like more profound than that. So let's look at both sides. If somebody who out there is struggling with addiction, what would you say their first step would be?
Well, most people don't necessarily look for a solution on their own. If they are, we're talking about a very small percentage. We're any kind of self-help group, AA or NA, and you know what, so if it's a drug addict and they say, oh, well, I'm not an alcoholic, I don't have a problem with alcohol. Look at it like this. It's not about the problem, it's about the solution, right? And the solution exists in those places. It takes a level of honesty that most people aren't prepared to go to. So usually most people need a little bit of some kind of
push.
Yeah.
So somebody went to and just sat down and didn't say anything. Because I would go because we were kind of trying to do some work, some business venture together. I would just go and sit and listen to the AA meeting on Swain by Pacific Bowl.
That's the one I sent you guys to. That's my loan group.
And listen and just blown away by the stories that the people had. The one that really sticks out in my mind the most was the man who addressed as a woman.
Passed away a couple years ago.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Or she? I don't know.
She passed away.
Man, that story was so deep.
Yeah, it is.
He was the bill collector for a biker gang. Yeah. Is the best way. This is the way I remember it. And he hurt so many people that he didn't like what he saw in the mirror. So in order to cope with that, had to totally change who he was, who he looked in the mirror to every day. And that's not my words, that was his words to the group. And I was just like, that is so deep.
Yeah, you're going to hear some pretty profound things. I mean, the things that trauma is, and the more I get into the science of addiction recovery and everything like that, it's almost always trauma on some level. Trauma is just, it's a driver. And one person's trauma is another person's bad day. I mean, some guys are coming back from combat, and they're not necessarily triggered.
Right.
And then you got a person who's, walking down the street and gets almost hit by a car, and they're traumatized, and there's no way to measure it. It doesn't match up for everybody the same.
So my suggestion would just go sit and listen. You'll see that other people are just like you, and even though I've never struggled with addiction other than cigarettes, which I don't no longer smoke, there's still so much I was able to take away from that, and you could see just by listening that the camaraderie there.
Yeah.
It was thick.
Yeah.
And
I'll describe it to you if you want to.
Absolutely.
So imagine me and you were on a cruise ship, right? We're out in the middle of the ocean, and we're having a great time. All of a sudden, the alarms go off, and they say, "Hey, hit the boats. This is not a drill. The ship's going down." And so everybody goes to all these boats, right? And you're on a boat. You're with all these people. You don't know who they are. You have no idea who they are.
Right.
And you're in this boat, and all the boats are together. All of a sudden, they kind of all take off. They're all just kind of drifting away. First day goes by, everybody's scared, There goes the boat. Second day, oh my gosh, there's nobody coming, Third day, now they're starting to get dehydrated, and it's getting serious. Fourth day, somebody dies on the boat, right? Fifth day, somebody else dies. 2 people die, right? And everybody's imminently going to die.
Right.
It's just going to happen. Suddenly a boat shows up, okay? And those 7 or 8 people that are left on that boat, there would be a bond with those people unlike any that you could ever recreate. They'll go home and they'll tell their loved ones, and they'll be so sincere, and they'll tell them, "Oh my God, I don't understand, I almost died." And they'll never fully get it. But when those people get back together, they know that's Alcoholics Anonymous.
Wow.
We know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I had went when I was younger, my girlfriend's mom, they were at, was it Al-Anon for the kids?
Yeah.
So
Al-Anon's for the family members, but yeah, there's Alateen, there's a lot of
so I've always kind of been around it, but when I went to your home group, it was a whole nother level. I was just like blown away.
Yeah.
They're like, just come back tomorrow.
Well, and you asked what an addict would do. I was kind of thinking about it. As you said in the beginning, everybody knows somebody who's addicted or has been affected by addiction.
Right.
I will also say that if that's true, they probably also know somebody, or that somebody else knows somebody who's in recovery, right?
True.
And so if I want to be introduced to recovery, myself, I got introduced to it through rehab. And most people that really catch on, I think, do. I don't know if most is the right word, but I'd say a good majority get introduced to it through rehab.
Either by choice or by force.
Yeah, whatever the case is, you're there, you're exposed to it, you're in a different setting. I look at it like a hospital setting, you're in a sterile environment, so the things that you learn are going to be a little different. So, and I was ready to hear that. Not everybody is. You'll hear stories from people that have 30 years, and they call it a nudge from the judge. I did not want to come here. I got a DUI, and the judge said I need to get this slip signed, and the first couple times I faked the signatures, and then they called me on it, said I'm going to jail if I don't, and somewhere they heard something. I mean, there's millions of different ways, but I would say if it was me, if it was somebody I cared about, and I wanted to, if somebody was somewhat willing, but they weren't willing to go to an AA meeting on their own, call somebody in recovery, call me, call somebody in recovery that you know, and say, this guy needs to get to a meeting, but he's just not quite there. I'll go sit with them, talk with them. Other people like me that did it with me, this is not something I invented.
Right.
We'll go talk with them, kind of like orientation, and then when you go with that person. Then afterwards, what I think was really a big deal for me was a lot of the people that were in the group all decided to take us to dinner afterwards. It's kind of the responsibility of the group to see somebody in that shape and try to embrace them. If you go to a meeting and it's not quite like that, try another one.
There's meetings all over. So
there's meetings everywhere, yeah.
It might not be, the shoe might not fit the first time.
Yeah. But I know a lot of people that it takes 10 more years for them to come back because the first experience wasn't really good. And I say to that's a shame, but at the same time, we all have a responsibility in it. I have a responsibility as an AA member to make you feel comfortable, but you also have a responsibility to come in and make yourself vulnerable enough to see that.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah.
It's hard for people to be vulnerable sometimes.
Yeah, especially then.
But just go listen. I mean, that's all I did. I was blown away.
Yeah. Yeah, it really works. It does work if you're willing. Somebody said on there, if somebody wants help. Do you mind if I comment to that?
Yeah, go ahead. That's what it's about.
Yeah. So I hear that so often. It bothers me to think that I've made a career out of something that isn't true. Because my job is I work at drug court. Okay. Nobody wants to go to drug court. I'm also an interventionist. Nobody goes to an interventionist and asks for help.
Right.
and yet I've made a living at it, and I've made of course that doesn't mean that everybody's gonna get it. In this thing, honestly, 25% is a booming success rate. If you get 25% of the people into recovery, you're doing great work. So it's not for the faint of heart. But if then the people say, well, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. No, but I can make them really thirsty, right? And yeah, they might not drink, but they might. If they're really thirsty.
A good friend of mine, he's passed away. His drug of choice was heroin, and his friends would go get him high. Like they would go with him to get high, and they'd sit there and talk to him, and just talk to him. He's like, and he goes, I didn't know they were like doing the Jedi mind trick on me.
Yeah.
He's like,
I bet he came out of it $20 light every time, at least.
But he finally got his stuff together. He finally heard the message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a big aspect of it that you do have to want it for it to work. But what my contention is that you don't have to want it to start it. When I do an intervention and I get somebody, I've taken people to Betty Ford, I've taken people to Hazelden, I've gone to all the places in this country that are the best of the best, right?
Right.
And they have the same
issues.
And then you got Recovery House out here. It's a county program. That's where I went. Okay, and the success rate isn't necessarily the greatest, but I went there. You can't tell me that it's not a good success rate.
Right.
I love that program.
The other thing I don't think people take into account is the emotional toll on you as the counselor or interventionist, that you can't save everybody.
Yeah, it takes a while to get to that place. And then the scary part of it is in the beginning you could save everybody. And then somewhere along the line you don't believe you could save anybody. And then you have to get back to the middle. Right? And so often, and I struggle with it sometimes, and what's funny is the judge, whenever I get one of those moments where I do something that's outside the box, because he's so outside the box, right? It doesn't have to be the way it looks for everybody to get it to work, right? You could try something radical. We got a year to work with them. You could try something radical, and if that works, yes, we all take a victory lap. And just the other day, I did something, and we all of us on the team kind of looked at each other like, yeah, we got that guy,
He heard it.
Yeah.
He heard the message.
Yeah. So it was all about us against them, right? So he was at war with us. This guy was at war with us because he thought we were the enemy. So he started to leave from court. So I walked outside and said, hey, don't leave, right? He kept on walking. I was trying to talk to him to not leave because now he's going to have a warrant. Right? It's not that big of a deal. He couldn't go to the bathroom to test, so he was thinking that he was going to go to jail. So an officer that works with the courts and us specifically saw me doing this, and he handcuffed him up and brought him back to court, right? And so his girlfriend's mad, he's mad. It's more. It's now it's not just us against him. Now it's right. And my recommendation was to release him and have him come check in the morning. Why? He had done everything he could to get arrested. That's not what it's about. It's not about arresting people. If that's what it was about, then we wouldn't even have drug court.
Right.
Drug court's about doing something different, right? And I walked outside and I talked to him and said, see, man, all you had to do was just come in here. You know what I mean? I got your back. You just got to be willing to put a little effort in.
Right.
Hey, that guy, it might not last forever, but right now, we're on the same team. Trust and believe that. I got him out of the jail on day before Thanksgiving. We're on the same team.
He gets turkey tomorrow.
He gets turkey.
And some fucking pie.
Yeah.
Or sweet potato pie, whatever you're...
And somebody will say, well, what's that got to do with now he's going to go home and use? Maybe. But now at least he's got somebody on his team that when he's ready.
But sometimes we have to hold the belief for somebody until they could believe in themselves.
Yeah, true.
And so when you're like, I believe in you, and that's what I told my nephew all the time. I believe in you. I don't know if it worked.
It did work,
but he's going through his internship to become a nurse right now.
It worked. He's a good kid. I remember when he came over, and I not only would I test him, but I would also talk with him. And he just was just a young, not really sure which way to go kid, man. But he had somebody in his life to point him true north, and it was always right there. He always knew it was right there. Even when he struggled, you didn't get angry with him. You just tried to intensify the help. That's what you do. When somebody fails you, it's not personal. It's not personal. It's their demons. It's not yours. Don't take it on as yours. Increase the help. increase the support, increase the opportunity. Yeah, they still might not take it, but increase it again.
It's
when
hard,
you get to the end, you know what? Hey, at the very end of that, and it takes a long time to get to the end of it, if it's not meant to be, okay. But how many people would we have lost if we just never put any of the initiative in?
So what resources can you recommend to the audience? Where can they go? If they have somebody, I think you kind of touched on it, reach out to somebody in recovery.
Yeah.
But is there websites, phone numbers?
Well, you can get a hold of me. I do this on my own time and everything like that, but I don't mind through Facebook. If you're seeing this, you probably have me on Facebook. If not, I'm willing to give my phone number out right now. It's 209 471 8199. It's worth it. I mean, 90% of the people that want to call won't call, but the 10% that do need to.
Okay.
And I'm willing to do that. If here's the thing that people don't realize too: if your person is on probation or on parole, and a lot of people are on probation these days, they are there to help. Believe it or not. Yes, they're law enforcement too, but their function is there to rehabilitate and to help. And if that's not the way you feel with your interaction with the probation officer or whatever, you might not be wrong. But what I'm saying is, ask around. Come see me. Whatever, I'll help you translate it, because it's always us against them.
Right.
But they have so many resources. If you're on probation, you have access to sober living, rehab, outpatient, medication-assisted treatment, counseling, mental health services. They have all that.
So the struggle that they're feeling may not be the true struggle. They may need somebody to, like you said, translate the struggle into a language in which they understand.
Antisocial, pro-social.
That they understand that it's not necessarily us against them.
Yeah.
It's about them getting the help they need.
Yeah, absolutely. And probation has made a big turn. The leadership of the probation department is amazing in this county. Our probation officer, our chief probation officer, is actually being sworn in as the president of the Chief Probation Officers Association in this state. She is on the leading edge of all this stuff. Now, of course, she's not the one you're going to meet with in the morning, but she has made an effort in the last 10 years I've been working with this thing. She's made a real strong effort to change the culture, and it's happened beyond what I thought could be possible. And the resources are there. Even, just if you're on probation, you have access to all those services. They're free. It's there. I'm telling you, it's not going away. That's the wave of the future. The legislature is making this more rehabilitation friendly. It takes a long time to get there. There's a lot of money out there for opioid recovery. It's an epidemic. We have it going on everywhere around us. There's money out there. I can help you get into that. If you're the type of family that does not want to be assimilated into the county services, I get that too, because that does come at a little bit of a cost to your credibility. I don't know. Just if your family's not that way, then I get that. And if that's the case, then call me. We can work something out privately. If it's not me, I'll get you connected with Ken Seeley or whoever. There's a lot of people out there.
Nate is the wealth of resources. He knows everybody in this town.
That's how you survive in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
If if you really want to help people, you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of programs come and go because their reasoning for being there, they thought they were going to make some money, and it didn't, and it didn't do it right then. We've even talked about that too. Yeah. And they didn't work it out, and it was all for the wrong reasons, and it just doesn't happen. But some of us that have been around a while.
Not saying what we were going to do was the wrong reasons, but it just...
No, we were just talking about, I in the beginning, I wanted to open a treatment center, and Lance was almost ready to help me get somebody connected. I'm glad we didn't do that, because I think the experience, you can't get experience till you get it, right?
Yeah.
And knowing what I know now, I probably would have, I mean, my intentions would have been right, but I don't know if it would have worked, you know what I'm saying? Because I didn't know the ins and outs yet, but...
10 years later, you get a whole lot of experience.
Yeah. And that's
in your head a few times.
And honestly, that's why intervention has become so much easier for me. Because in the beginning, I wanted everybody to like me, right? I wanted the addict to like me and say, this is my first friend that understands. I wanted the family to trust me and then be able to get there. Right. And it's not about that at all. right? And you have to go through a lot of people not liking you to come to the conclusion.
I'm not always
And that's
gonna be
terrible, but it happens, and then you become skilled at what you do, you know, and you can't teach that. So,
well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
anytime, Lance.
Remember, all your real estate needs, yes, you can with Lance McHan. And join me next weekend with Pedro McDougall from Premier Community Credit Union. We'll be on my show. We'll be talking banking and lending, economy, a little bit of everything. Be good to people out there. Hope you have a very